please give your attention to our research panel. Let's give it up for them one more time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yay, mic check. Woohoo. So I'm so excited to be moderating this panel because these folks are amazing, wonderful researchers. They're incredible people. I like to hang out with them. And I've been known to shoot a crazy email or two asking strange research questions, which they answer like immediately with amazing information. So I'm just so privileged to be able to lead us through this conversation. I will address questions to individual panelists, but please invite other colleagues in, jump in. You all just have such a wealth of information. We actually, in our prep call, ended up with something like 53 questions. So we narrowed that down to like 6 or 7. So Olga, I'm going to start with you, but this is for all of our panelists. Has dual enrollment been just another system for reinforcing privilege, or has it been an equity strategy?
Yes, so I think the short, Olga Rodriguez, as was noted, I'm proud to be from the Valley, so it's really exciting to be working from home, from my hometown, so just drove here this morning. Yeah, so I think the short answer is yes to both. I think historically, traditionally, it has been one of those strategies that privileged families, people who have parents that have gone to college, or people with counselors who had high expectations and high aspirations and knew that these certain students were on the college path, kind of let them know that these opportunities were available to them. So I think, yes, that's kind of the way we know about it. However, over the last about 10 years, I think there have been some intentional policies and programs that have aimed to use dual enrollment as an equity strategy. And I'm really excited to be part of the research that actually studied some of these in California. About 12, 13 years ago, the Concurrent Courses Initiative in California, and maybe some of you in this room were part of that work, through Irvine Foundation funded work in California. And more recently with the CCAP, so AB 288, which intended to expand and broaden access to dual enrollment for populations that hadn't been traditionally reached. So students who may not have been on the college track, or students underserved in higher education. So yeah, I think the short answer is yes to both. I think it has been historically used as a way to just provide more opportunities to those who already had them. And I'm excited to know that there are intentional efforts to change that. And I'll kind of end my opening remark with just my story. As was mentioned, I was a student in Porterville High School. My brother was a student at Porterville College, and he asked me, what courses are you taking your senior year? I was taking calculus, and he's like, why aren't you taking that at Porterville College? They offer it at Porterville College. And sure enough, he drove me there to take the test, the placement test. I placed into the calculus course. I placed one level below in the English course, so I didn't take English 101, but I did take a Chicano drama course through the English department, and that, as I mentioned in my bio, that changed I was able to get my 4-year degree thanks to that course, because I petitioned to have it count as an art requirement, because drama is a form of art. And thanks to my calculus course, I started in Calculus 3 at UC Santa Barbara, and it gave me kind of the courage to pursue a more math-intensive major. So I was in the Partnership Academy of Business in high school, so I knew about business, I knew about economics, but I had already basically met the requirements for business economics, and I was more advanced in math, so I chose economics instead. And I think we should use pathways, for example, to kind of also improve the pathway into the economics profession as an example, because I think that's another area where we need more people of color, or more, it's just severely underrepresented. And just to close off, I think there's a lot of opportunity to use current community college students as a dual enrollment recruitment strategy, as happened for me. My counselors actively discouraged me from taking calculus at the community college because they offered AP calculus at the high school. And I think one interesting fact is that the AP calculus instructor at my high school, Mr. Zamora, if anybody of you are familiar with Porterville USD, he actually sent his son to take the community college calculus course during his senior year. So when we have these discussions about AP versus dual enrollment, I think we have to think about, like, what would I want for my children? And here we have a high school AP calculus teacher who sends his son to take AP calculus at the community college. So anyway, my short story to just say that we need to broaden access, and it's a really exciting place to be when there's policies and programs aimed to do that.
Thank you so much. Yes, please. Fantastic. I'm so glad you took that class and it put you on the trajectory that gets you on the stage here tonight or this afternoon. Craig, same question. Dual enrollment, has it been just a reinforcing kind of privilege, program, or is this an equity strategy?
Yes and yes. So I'm going to have the same answer as Olga, and I'm going to agree with Christopher Nellum, which is, as he stated earlier this morning, probably never a bad place to start from, agreeing with Christopher Nellum. But there's a lot of potential there for dual enrollment to be a true equity strategy. And we do see some equity outcomes when we look at our data at Bakersfield College for former dual enrolled students. So we're talking about students who've completed dual enrollment units in the high school and then transitioned to the community college. They're more likely to enroll in and complete transfer level math, which is one of the kind of major milestones that generates transfer degree completion momentum. So that's a really positive outcome. It works, for all students. So on the English side, it's interesting. Transfer level English completion was only enhanced for the Hispanic students who are former dual enrolled. So also an equity strategy and result. They tend to, former dual enrolled students enroll in more units. They're more likely to be full time. So a lot of positive kind of sequelae of being a former dual enrollment student once they make it to college. Also more likely to enroll in college. That being said, there are access constraints. So we are kind of, on the access and the front end of entry into dual enrollment, we are replicating systems of privilege. And I think the way around that was shared with us right at the top of the day by Chancellor Christian, which is, get all of our ninth grade students into dual enrollment, right? So it needs to be an opt-out strategy rather than a strategy where students who are sort of in the know, got the inside track, heard it from somebody that it's a good, thing, get access to that dual enrollment, bump or benefit.
Thank you. And I know that with some focus groups that we did with current community college, former dual enrollment students, one of the things that they said was they just wish more people knew about it. And I think current community college district, you have a ton of dual enrollment, right? But the students themselves were saying more. We need more. We want more.
It's kind of crazy. That is so true, and we have the amazing Kylie Campbell and the incredible dual enrollment team and an outreach team at BC. But when we recently completed our first ever survey of dual enrolled students in the fall of 2022, and we saw in there that if you ask the students who had the biggest impact on their decision to pursue dual enrollment, and it was far and away somebody at the high school. 45% of them said someone at the high school versus like 4.5% said someone from the college, which is not to say that they didn't have other questions, and they had a high number of them had interactions with college personnel, but that that partnership between the high school and the college is critical because it's, you know, it's going to be the high school personnel that are kind of getting them in the front door.
Thank you, thank you. Sherry, same question. And I know last night we were talking and you were like, oh, I'm digging through all this research, catching myself up. What can you tell us about equity strategy and dual enrollment?
Well, I agree with the other panelists, yes and yes. I think, you know, when we look at the statewide dual enrollment rates, what we see is that students who are taking high school students who are taking community college courses, like on their own, or in these random acts of dual enrollment, or finding them on their own, those patterns are replicating the persistent inequities that we see across educational opportunities and outcomes with Asian American students and white students enrolling in community college courses at much higher rates than Black and Latinx students, more affluent students enrolling at higher rates. But what's really promising is that when we look at courses that are purposefully and intentionally geared towards high school students and that they enroll only high school students, those equity gaps all but disappear. They're completely gone. And so when we are intentional about the programs that we're setting up for high school students and about enrolling them, it's very promising that it's an equity strategy.
That's fantastic, amazing. And we can think about that as practitioners, right? Like programs that we create, we are in control of the design, of the recruitment, of, you know, all of those kind, you know, what is the course offering? And students just coming on their own, they just, you know, come and have the smorgasbord of college, right? So it's a very different situation. And they've been clued in by somebody. So thank you for that. So this next question is about effective outreach, right? So how do we get students through the door in a more equitable way? And Craig, I know that you've done some things about this, so please talk to us about it.
Yeah, so I think the new data points that we're pulling out of the dual enrollment survey of student engagement are indicating that, you know, we have been doing good work, but it to a certain extent replicates the finding that Career Ladders Project found, which is that one of the main pain points for students trying to engage in dual enrollment is the registration process. So they're kind of signing up for classes. So that includes CCC Apply and registration. And I should you know, kind of put some parameters around that. This is a survey of Bakersfield College dual enrolled students. So, but there is a national sample of this pilot dual enrollment survey of student engagement. And so the BC students are kind of at the high end of having something positive to say about the registration experience. But California, the California environment is actually really complex, makes it very difficult. And that is clear when you look at the national numbers for how many students say that registration is problematic. It's a much bigger issue in California, which tells me we have policy work to do. So that's where I think the research is leading us.
Thank you. Thank you. And then just for our practitioners in the audience, raise your hand if you are familiar with the community college student engagement survey. Compton, I know we do it there. Yeah, lots of folks. Okay, national survey, been going on for many years. Validated survey, has historical data. They just started piloting a dual enrollment student survey of student engagement. And so Bakersfield was one of the pilot schools, but it was national. So look for it because they're probably gonna do some findings, they're gonna do some validation, and then they're gonna roll it out and make it available. So if you're wondering what the experiences are of your dual enrollment students, there's going to be a tool very soon that you'll be able to compare to national data.
It's amazing to have access to those data points. We haven't had that kind of visibility into, you know, that granularity of the student experience. So I highly recommend it. Highly
recommended. So Sherry, you talked a little bit about the difference between high school only kinds of dual enrollment and closing equity gaps there. They're disappearing. Versus just any student coming to the college. So thank you for that. Olga, I think you've done a little bit more research on CCAP in particular, because there's early and middle colleges, there's non-CCAP MOUs, but can you talk to us a little bit about CCAP and equity gaps?
Absolutely. Yes. So since CCAP started, CCAP has been the primary driver of the growth of dual enrollment across the state, and it is the place where we see equitable access for Latino students. So their share in the high school population is reflective of the share of students served through CCAP. We see a tremendous amount of growth. And one of the things that we found is that there's actually a lot of growth has happened in career-focused areas as well as in the transfer areas. Students are successfully completing their courses, transitioning to college at higher rates. About 80% of students who participated in CCAP went to college. One of the things that we found is that they're more likely, over half of them went to a community college. And so that's, as opposed to other dual enrollees who are more likely to go to four-year college. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity there because these are students who are coming to the community college with credits, ensuring kind of the connection to guided pathways, ensuring that they have a pathway and it's clear. Most of them are coming with transfer goals to the community college. So ensuring that the courses that they took are putting them on a pathway to completion and transfers is key. Let me see, what else can I say? Yeah, it's just been a tremendous equity strategy, giving the students the opportunity to take college courses in their high school in a safe space, supported by both high school resources and to have the potential to access community college resources. I think that's a great untapped potential right now. These are college and high school students, and they technically have access to the student supports in both spaces. And I think that something maybe that you all found too, they're accessing them more at the high school, like counselors, tutoring, and other supports. But because they are college students, I think ensuring that they know about and maybe part of their course is to go to a writing center at the community college so they learn about what the supports are available there. Earlier I was in a session about field trips to the college. That is another big piece because these courses are now hosted and housed in high schools. So ensuring that there are opportunities for the students to come to campus and explore the campus life, the facilities, the supports, the offices, the library, the labs, the tutoring. I think that's going to be key to ensure that students get that complete college experience. But yeah, I think eliminating the logistical problem of getting students to the college campus has been supporting, I think, supporting CCAP as an equity strategy. And of course the cost, it eliminates the cost. And there are incentives. Now both the high schools and the colleges are getting funded to support these students. I think in the past there was this issue where if this high school students go to the college, then the high school is going to lose out on funding. But now I think the funding structure is such that it actually supports both. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And it all depends on the design. So if you have design questions, if you have questions about instructional minutes, there's plenty of folks in the room that can clue you in. Sherry, I'm going to send this question to you first, and feel free to pass off to a colleague if you like. We've heard a lot today about gatekeeping, right? Who's guarding the gates of the college courses? Lots of folks are. And they're usually doing this with the best of intentions, right? So they're limiting access to students because they think, oh, younger kids, no. Dual enrollment is really great for seniors, maybe a couple juniors. Younger than that, they can't do it, right? So best of intentions. But can we talk about the 9th grade? Can you tell us anything about 9th grade dual enrollment?
Well, I can tell you there's not enough of it. That's a good starting point, right? So I think earlier we saw maybe a graph that you created, Greg, with a kind of ramp of the dual enrollment course taking, looking at 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And what I can tell you is that in our research, when we look at one cohort of students, now this is a high school graduating cohort pre-pandemic, I will say a little bit dated, but When we look at that, we see 400,000 high school graduates in a cohort, and we see that about 13% or so of them are involved in dual enrollment, and only about 5,000 course enrollments are happening in ninth grade. But by the time they get to 12th grade, those same students are taking over 45,000 course enrollments. So you can just imagine what the ramp looks like from 5,000 in ninth grade to 45,000 courses in 12th grade, and that between 11th and 12th grade, the number of course enrollments is almost doubling. So what we have here is a lot of opportunity to enroll students in community college courses at a much younger age. I will, just a second point on ninth grade is that I've heard a lot of talk today that we get pushback sometimes from practitioners or some of these gatekeepers that ninth graders aren't ready for college courses and that we have to support them more and more. And I would just say that's true in the high school or the community college. Ninth graders need 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders, but all need to support their success in whatever class they're enrolled in, whether it's at the high school or the community college.
Yes, yes. Absolutely. And I know that a lot of the supports we talk about for first-time high school students, first-time taking a college class, some of them are pretty intensive that we want to give them. But really, if we're doing our job well as open access institutions, we would be able to give those kinds of supports to any first-time college student, whether they're 15 or 50. So yes, 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 and let's do it. Craig, you've done some stuff with ninth graders.
Yeah. So we looked at the performance of ninth graders, and I'd invite everyone to check out BC's, it's actually KCCD's dual enrollment dashboard. We've upgraded it so you can find data for Porterville, Saracoso, and Bakersfield College. That they've put the link in the slide deck. So when you get the slide deck later on, you can find my smiling face there with my pandemic hat on, and click on the link under there, and that'll take you to the dual enrollment dashboard that we have. And what you can see there is course success disaggregated by age group, which is our proxy for grade level. And it's very good performance from our dual enrollment students, right? So I think the ninth grade student success average success rate is about 86-87% overall. Now it does kind of tick up a little bit from there, right? The 88, 89, 90% by the time you're in 12th grade. But they're all at such high levels that it's not like there is a concern that ninth graders really can't handle the work. That being said, kind of going back to that dual enrollment survey of student engagement, about 38% of the students in the dual enrollment pool who respond say that they do struggle with the dual enrollment work. Now that's interesting because that's productive struggle, because most of those students who are struggling are still going to go on to pass that class because it's such a high success rate. But we also know that they're not availing themselves of the full sort of suite of supports that should be available at the college level. And so that means that there's a whole constellation of data points that are showing us that students are under accessing those supports. And so that we should turn that constellation of data points into a constellation of support, because that's just correlation, not causation. So we can increase those students' success rates with more effective application and access to supports for those students.
Thank you. Sherry, please go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was just say correlation.
They'll turn it up. Yeah.
Okay. Correlation, not causation, except that we have plenty of evidence about causation in terms of what helps students to persist and succeed and attain a degree in college. And one of those factors is being able to navigate and access and use the support systems available to them. So the earlier we get them that skill, I think the stronger students they will become and the more likely they will be to succeed in the community college and the four-year college beyond that.
Oh, fantastic. And I think many of us are familiar with the surveys where students had said, I thought, when I started college, I thought only poor students or not smart students went to tutoring. Then I learned, oh no, it's the smart students who go to tutoring. That's how you get an A, right? So making it normal, this is part of the college experience, is to seek out these supports. Olga, did you have anything on ninth graders?
Yeah, I could mention, being the first in my family to graduate from high school, to go to college, daughter of farm workers, knowing that starting in the ninth grade could really change trajectories, right? Like, you are already tracked by that point. I was tracked on the college path. My brother did not even get access to algebra in high school. He graduated high school without algebra. That's kind of how tracking happens. So giving them access to a college course, to build aspirations, to sustain aspirations, I think could be really key. Like a college success course, for example, because at the end of the day, I think part of it is having access to the knowledge and to the information of what's possible. So there's PPA. PPAC is also known for their statewide survey. So parents of California's youth, 75% of them want their children to get a college degree. But an equal share say it's not affordable, right? Costs are a concern. So personally, and just in the data, I think dual enrollment is an affordability strategy, it's an equity strategy, and it's an efficiency strategy. So I think giving the high school students an opportunity, I think there's a ninth graders in particular, I think there's a really strong potential to kind of dismantle the tracking that has happened up to that point by just giving them access to information and knowledge to what it takes to pursue a college education. Because aspirations are there. It's about access to that information and having a counselor who believes in you, having parents that know that this is a possibility, and that's where bringing in the family after all these are minors, right? So parents play a big role in whether or not they're gonna participate. So I think it is just having the experience in my family from somebody who's not on that path and somebody who was afforded that path. I think had my brother had this information about what's possible and hey, these are the courses that are going to get me on the path to a college degree, he could have asked for that. My parents didn't know, didn't graduate from high school, didn't go to the, go through the educational system here. So having a structure that provides that information to students, I think, is key. So through a student success course, and I would just encourage that it's transferable, that it's a transferable student success course that provides students these opportunities and this knowledge, makes these connections. But I would also add that similar course at the end, right? Because we provide this at ninth grade, but then students are making college choice decisions their senior year. I benefited from something like this through Upward Bound. And I don't think just the lucky few should have access to this information. So if we had these for seniors, right, in their the first semester of senior year when students are applying to college, applying to further FAFSA, I just benefited from workshop style programs. We just need to make a structural change so all students have access. And I think that's maybe where there's an opportunity for dual enrollment, because there's counselors that have this information. How do we make it accessible to all students in multiple languages, to families? And it starts as early as possible, and if dual enrollment is an opportunity, I think, the ninth grade is key for that.
Fantastic. Well, you've mentioned counselors a few times. Any counselors in the room? Oh yeah. And of course, we the counselors in this room, we don't have any gatekeepers here. We have door openers, right? So Sherry, let's start with you, and then and feel free to pass it on. Can you talk to us about the role of counselors? What does the research say about counseling?
So there's lots of, or not lots, but there is some really solid evidence about the importance of high school counselors in students' educational outcomes. So the Counselors with lower student ratios or student caseloads are associated with greater likelihood of high school graduation, greater likelihood of college enrollment, and higher academic performance of the students that they serve. So there's plenty of evidence about the role. The National Association for Counselors recommends a ratio of 250 students per counselor. In California, we have nearly 600 students per counselor. So we have a lot of room here, a lot more opportunity again to train and to hire counselors to serve the students, because we know they play an important role in their success, and especially we know from talking to the counselors in the room that they play a particularly important role in the dual enrollment process.
Craig, did you want to jump in on counseling?
Fewer than half of our dual enrolled students tell us that they've met with a counselor, from a college counselor. So that is, again, an opportunity and for greater engagement. We also see the value of students actually having a meeting with a counselor. That's one of the things that stands out clearly in the survey of student engagement, the regular SESI survey. When we connect that data to outcomes like degree completion and transfer, students who've met with a counselor are more likely to achieve those kinds of outcomes than students who don't. We're constrained. On the other hand, we're constrained because of the ratios that Sherry was talking about. So I think we need to be smart about how we leverage our counselors' time and provide them with assets such as the program pathways mapper that can be a force multiplier, because what that tool does is it sort of extracts that intel, the best thought and advice from counselors and from faculty about how to get from program entry to program exit, term by term, course by course, and it just shares it widely, openly, and freely. And when we do that, we see positive equity outcomes for students because it kind of reveals the hidden curriculum to them. So yes, we need more counseling, we need more counselors, and we need to kind of also think outside the box about how to leverage that capacity that we have.
Thank you, thank you. And I'm wondering, can you raise your hand, my Long Beach colleagues? Long Beach, okay, the whole table over there is Long Beach. And I do remember a few years back that, speaking of that college success course, right? That the Long Beach Unified School District counselors had an in-service where Long Beach City College counselors came over and taught an abbreviated version of that class. And at the time, they said it was the best professional development they'd ever had in terms of helping students to transition. So those opportunities to connect our counselors to each other and really, yeah, they're high-fiving. They're crazy. Yeah.
I think this counseling, the evidence that I shared was about high school counselors, but I think what's, great about dual enrollment is that students benefit from both the resources at the high schools and the community colleges, and so I think counseling is just one of many areas where students benefit. But I love what I'm hearing in the rooms today about the partnerships and how students are receiving services from both segments.
Yeah, fantastic. They get support from two different institutions. It's fantastic. A comment, I'm going to transition a little bit, a common question that we get, and I'm sure folks in the room have heard this, when they're trying to grow dual enrollment or they're talking to folks on their campuses that might be, not so on board with it, and they say, yeah, especially on the college side, yeah, but they don't come here after high school. They don't show up after high school, so why are we putting all these resources into it? So I'm wondering, Craig, I'm going to ask you to start with this, and Olga, I'd like you to chime in as well. Sherry, you're always welcome. What happens to students after high school graduation who have participated in dual enrollment?
I'm so glad you asked that, Naomi. It's almost as if we had a whole publication that addresses that question. Where are they now? You can pick this up at the Career Ladders project desk or table in the lobby over there. And it does speak directly to that question. What we see is very interesting. So students are more likely to, former dual enrollment students are more likely to enroll at the community college up to a certain point, right? Up to a certain unit threshold. And once they get, that unit threshold is fairly high, it's about 26 units. So all the way up to 26 units, their likelihood of going to the community college increases, and then it starts to drop off. And by the time you get over 50 units, they're very unlikely to go to the community college. And I bet you can guess why. It was because they've already completed their coursework that they needed from the community college. So there's really no need for them. So those students, when we look in the National Student Clearinghouse, we see they are transitioning on to higher education, but they're doing it at a four-year university. So it's actually an excellent strategy to increase the likelihood of students enrolling in community college.
Thank you, thank you. But only if students have access, right? So this is anecdotal, this is not research, but it is data. If we limit access to only the quote unquote A students or the high performing students, of course they're going to go on to a university after they graduate. That's what their plan is, and that's what they've been set up to do. When we increase access and we give, for example, every ninth grader that opportunity, my prediction is that we're just going to see that pipeline of students into the community college and beyond really strengthen and increase. But that is a prediction that is forward-looking based on what I know. But Olga, can you tell us what happens to students after high school graduation?
Yeah, and I just want to comment on what you just said. I think building on aspirational capital that the students bring with them is key. And I saw the framework that you're working on, and I was really pleased to see Tarayoso's work cited there. She's actually the reason why I went to graduate school. I was her student at UC Santa Barbara. And yeah, I think part of it is building on a lot of the capital that first-gen, low-income students bring with them that we might not acknowledge: linguistic capital, familial capital, aspirational capital, navigational capital. All these things, like students come into high school, they bring it with them throughout K-12, but I think there's an opportunity to really kind of tap on that through opportunities like dual enrollment. And I lost my train of thought, but I wanted to go back to the counselor's question because I agree. There's a lot of door openers, but there's a lot of gatekeepers. So if going with universal access to FAFSA, to math and English courses at community colleges, I think there's an opportunity to do universal access to dual enrollment, which I think is kind of the chancellor's goal. Because when we leave it up to an individual or to a policy or to a structure, it's probably going to continue leading to inequitable outcomes or access. And that's what we consistently see, even in the implementation of AB 705. When we leave it to institutions, we might not see kind of the equity impacts that we hope. So kind of the opt-out, as was discussed, is going to be key. And also because counselors are also constrained, right? Like, so having like the pathway mapper to help students access the information they need, because all of that information they need to complete a degree is out there. It's publicly available on a course catalog, on a college website. So how do we structure in a way that is easily accessible to students? I think that could really address resource-constrained or kind of time-constrained counselors to really connect students to the support services and the mental health services, the food pantry, all the other basic needs, that they could help connect students with. If some of these other processes are automated, because we know the data is already out there, how do we structure it in a way that's going to help students have a clear pathway? And that's kind of where the guided pathways conversation also comes, because there's an opportunity for dual enrollment to be a real on-ramp to college. Going back to college outcomes, I just want to restate something that I mentioned earlier. Students who participate in a CCAP program, they're the students who are traditionally not on a college path, who are underrepresented in higher ed and in these programs, yet they're going to college at 80% of them are going to college within 1 year. So these are CCAP students, and most of them are going to a community college. So kind of ensuring that these structures, like the pathway mapper, that guided pathways are kind of structured in a way that are going to support them is key. Because, I think access to information, clarity of that information, once they enter college, you don't want them to just, figure it out on their own. The structures have to be there to support them meeting their goals. And many of them come in wanting to transfer. So how are we holding ourselves accountable to making sure that they meet that goal in a timely manner? Because if we do it well, it's an efficiency strategy. Students are completing their courses, they're completing them quicker, and they're making more room for other students who are on the same journey. So yeah, I just want to add that in an ideal setting, students are taking courses that are going to meet A through G requirements, community college requirements, CSU requirements, and UC requirements, because we shouldn't close a door for them. We should open opportunities, and for them to really have that college choice be real, they have to be able to take those credits wherever they choose when that time comes their senior year. So I think CCAP is a really strong opportunity for that. Yeah.
So I just want to underscore 2 points that were made by you and also by Sherry earlier. So Olga, you just said that 80% of CCAP students go on to college within a year of graduating high school. And Sherry, you said earlier that CCAP and high school style dual enrollment has shrunk and virtually disappeared equity gaps in terms of access. And you're both nodding your head. Does this mean CCAP is working?
I think the early evidence suggests that it is. It's improving equity and access. Who is participating is more reflective of the high school population that is in California high schools. They are more successful. They are transitioning into college at higher rates. We currently have a study where we're going to look at some of the early college outcomes. So that's in progress. But yeah, I think the early evidence suggests that it is reaching. I think there's a little more work to do to reach Black students, but Latino students are equitably represented. I think the early evidence suggests that it is, and that's why there's a lot of potential to continue to improve the pipeline into higher education.
I agree that we have some early indicators that it is working. I think we have a little bit more work to do in our research shops to test the causality of that and to ensure that what we're seeing in terms of like increased enrollment and increased equity as a result of CCAP agreements. But yeah, I think it's promising for sure.
Okay, so we just need to take a pause before our last question, because that is so monumental, and so many of the people in the room have been like blood, sweat, and tears getting these agreements together and these partnership meetings. So folks, if you've been working on these CCAP partnerships, just applaud yourself right now. We are seeing results. This is amazing. This is incredible. So thank you for that. And of course, we do know as well amazing, incredible partnerships that have been using non-CCAP MOUs. So until very recently, Bakersfield College, doing tremendous, fantastic work, shows that it's not it's not what the law says. It's what your intention is and what you do, right?
That's right. So in our work, the high school only classes aren't limited to CCAP agreements. So they would be reflective of any high school and college that's working together to provide college classes for high school students.
Absolutely. We can call it whatever we want. We know what we need to do. Excellent. Intentionality. Thank you. So this is our last question. It's a biggie, and we only have a couple minutes left. But this room is full of equity-minded dual enrollment practitioners. How can they use data to better inform their work? Anybody, please.
I mean, you have to use data. I mean, that's step number one. I think it was Roger earlier said you have to look at race, or don't shy away from looking at race. I don't know exactly how she phrased it, but it's important. We have to interrogate the data if with our goals in mind and equity in mind, in order to make the right decisions about or informed decisions about the students who we are intentionally targeting for enrollment in the programs and providing additional supports for. So I think the first step is use the data, interrogate the data, and don't be shy about asking questions about race and socioeconomic status when you're looking at the data.
Thank you. Thank you, Olga. How should the folks in this room use the data?
Yeah, so in our last study, we talked to probably some of you in this room to help inform our analysis of MIS data. And one of the things that we learned is that being intentional about looking at who is participating and asking, is this reflective of the high schools that we're serving? Are we reaching the population that CCAP intends to reach? And if we're not, then going to the high schools where those students are and establishing those partnerships. Because I think often if you kind of leave it up to chance, who's going to learn about it? Who's going to enroll? It's not going to be the population that the law intended to serve. So I think using the data to inform these access conversations, outreach conversations, and then not stopping there, but then looking at your success rates. How are the students doing in the courses, and connecting them to the supports, both at the college and the high school if they need them, if they're struggling. Because I think that for a student, I think this is what I tell my nieces and nephews. It's like you're a full-time student. This is your career, right? If you're in K-12, this is what you've been doing for the last 12 years. You're in a supportive environment. You have your high school counselors, you have your college counselors, and tutoring and support services. So I think it is a very safe space, and I think if we provide them with that information and access to the courses and support, I think that could really be transformative. Because another thing we see in the data is that students are passing courses at higher rates when they take them as dual enrollment than a student who might be taking it as already a degree-seeking student at the college. And part of this is probably the support structures around the students. They're in a safe space. So how do we have these students take these high-challenge courses like transfer-level math, transfer-level English, their senior year, as an example? Because we know that is a great gatekeeper to students achieving their goals. So the data suggests that maybe we should try to do more of this.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And Craig, 30 seconds or less. How should the folks use the data?
Use the data to break down the barriers. Use the data to bust open the gates that gatekeepers are putting in the way of student access. And so that means showing that students can be successful in these classes, disaggregating that data, and be creative, be thoughtful, propose solutions. There's a concern that, a valid concern about students who aren't successful in dual enrollment, and that then becomes part of their permanent college transcript. I've been shopping this idea around. Feel free to email me later or catch up to me and tell me why I'm wrong. But shouldn't all those dual enrollment students who don't get a passing grade get an EW instead, and then basically an excused withdrawal holds them harmless, no impact on their long-term GPA. I think that we have the levers there, so use the data, use logic, use creativity, use compassion, use empathy, and get the message out, expand access, and bring them in. Let them be successful.
Excellent. Join me in thanking our panel. Thank you all so very, very, very much. It's just such an honor to share the stage with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi.